an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 3. All signs point to Josh. Or is it Josh's friend? In this episode, Rebecca is putting a lot of stock in signs from the universe about boys. She's really, pretty high school this episode. And, I love her. And also, girl, listen to your therapist. Please, sweetie, I love you. But, what are you doing? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. So, y'all probably noticed that I'm focusing on the fact that Rebecca is trying to decide between two boys, and I'm ignoring the fact that Paula is pregnant because I don't want to acknowledge that that is happening. So, is that cool? Can we just go on and pretend that that's not happening? Because I would be super, super happy about it. Guys, I have no idea what the show is going to do about Paula. Is it going to become an abortion storyline? Because she has fucking plans and is not interested in the fucking raising of another child. So, in my opinion, clear-cut case. Don't want to be pregnant. Don't have a baby. It's fine. I, however, have no idea where Paula as a human being stands on that issue and if she would consider an abortion or not. The vibe of seeing her reaction to her pregnancy seems to suggest to me that it's not even a consideration. Her sheer panic feels like it's genuinely a done deal. I might be wrong. Maybe it's just the panic. And she, because I definitely believe in abortion. But I would still fucking panic the way that she is if I found out I was pregnant. Because an abortion is still traumatic to your body. It's not nothing. So wanting to go through that, it's not exactly a desire. You're not excited about it. You're still facing something kind of awful. Full disclosure, I had an abortion when I was 23, 22. And I got an infection and wound up bleeding for over a month. And it was just the worst. It was so, so terrible. So, it's not something that I would want to do again. But I would want to have children even less. There you have it. Paula, sweetie, it seems like they were being careful too, which just is insult to injury. Shit just happens sometimes. Fucking bodies, man, really just don't like to be on your side most of the time. So I think I've said enough about that, and we'll just ignore it, move right along as if that had not happened. So we start off this episode with the weird dream that Rebecca has, that she's having and it's not a dream. I really thought at first that this was a dream, but as it turns out, this is her telling a polyamorous throuple that what she is hoping will happen if she doesn't decide between Greg and Josh. And it makes total sense that Rebecca would think that polyamory was the answer to her problems here. People who don't understand how polyamory works do not, it makes sense that you would just kind of think, oh, it's a free-for-all. It's just me being able to like get what I want without having to worry about consequences or other people's emotions or anything like that. Like, girl, has anything about these two guys indicated to you that they are interested in sharing a girlfriend? Has that ever seemed like something either of them would be remotely okay with? What? But she just wants what she wants. And it's such an unnatural, weird, like, the two of them are on either side of her, like, kissing her cheeks really fast. And I just want to see the blooper of that moment so bad, because I really feel like that has to be the most hilarious. Like, the two of them are, and by two of them, I mean Greg and Josh, just seem like they're trying so hard not to laugh throughout that whole scene. I was dying. And it turns out that these people that she's talking to they have been brought here under the false premise that she is writing an article about polyamory for Psychology Today. And she is honest with them, like, at that point, and just she doesn't even try and keep this up. She just tells them, I straight up lied, but I just don't know what to do. And they give her pretty decent advice after almost getting up and leaving, which really makes sense. First, dude, it's not a default option for somebody you can't choose. It's not about arm wrestling for sex. It is just, I forgot about the arm wrestling thing, y'all. I did. She desperately, I am legitimately torn. And this woman has to be like, you are describing a love triangle. That is a totally different thing. And then we get the triangle song. Now, the instant this starts, I'm like, this is Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. This is a Marilyn Monroe spoof. But it is so awful. And it's, by awful, I mean really good. Like, I don't really think I've ever seen a movie with Marilyn Monroe in it. Did she talk this way all the time? Was this voice that's put on for this? Because, like, I know in the song, diamonds are a girl's best friend. Like, that's how she does it in the song. But is that just how she would straight up deliver her lines of dialogue as well? I don't know if I could watch that. I feel like I would just be like so irritated, or I would be laughing during moments when maybe I shouldn't be laughing because of that voice, that breathy, like, oh my God, I don't, Erica says, I hated the blonde guy in that video. His hair was too long for being slicked back like that. That's very specific, Erica. I did not notice this guy. And I love the fact, because a lot of these dudes read as gay to me. And I was so happy that later on she's talking about like flirting with all of them and giving them all a kiss. And they all eventually just tell her, we're all gay and this is not doing anything for any of us, which I found really amusing. This bit, though, is done really well, I will say. And she like manages this voice very well. This is not an easy thing to pull off. And pull it off she does. So like, good for her. Shit, so anyway, this song just also seems very long. I don't know if that's just me, but a lot of the songs in this show feel like they're about 2 minutes long. Some of them are even shorter, but this one goes on for like a minute. This is like a good 3-minute long song. So, it's very well done. I'm just saying. Okay, so then when we come out of this fantasy, it turns out that Rebecca is with her therapist. Now, initially, I saw this and I was like, oh, good. She's still going to her therapist. I thought that this was like a step in the right direction. I didn't expect Rebecca to continue seeing her therapist after that fateful plane trip in which it seemed like she was, just kind of taking this dream that she had as her therapy and moving right along with life and sort of seeing it as, okay, well, I guess I did therapy. I can check that off instead of seeing it as like an ongoing thing. So when she's here in her therapist's office, I am feeling really excited about it. But then it turns out that she does not listen at all. Now, this is really an indicator of somebody who has money and does not understand how to use it, because I pay the kind of money that she is paying this woman, and you had better bet your ass I am going to hear what this woman has to say. That doesn't necessarily mean I will do what she says. That doesn't necessarily mean I will agree with it. But Rebecca is straight up not hearing her. And it is, why are you here? She's just here to unload on somebody because she can't unload on Paula anymore, right? Like, she is paying somebody to be an emotional Paula. They will not be they will not get up to shenanigans with her. They will not encourage shenanigans. But she can sort of like just come here and just like share her nutty interpretations of what's going on. And she points out neither man is actually offering you a relationship. And two, because of your mental health issues, you shouldn't be in a serious relationship at all. You feel torn between two men, but it has nothing to do with those two men. It has to do with your personal issues. And Rebecca says, you are wrong. Straight up. No, you are wrong. I feel it is my destiny to be with one of these two men. Guys, I remember thinking that there were only as many guys in the world as I currently knew. I don't miss it. Like, she really does seem to think that this little friend group that she has encountered and stuffed herself into is the limit of any dude that she will ever meet and like. It's weird. She has the obsession with Josh that is rooted in her desire to escape her unhappy life in New York. And then she has something that was genuine with Greg. And I believe it was genuine for both of them. But they each are too fucked up to actually be involved with one another. She has to get a hold of the fact that she is using relationships to distance herself from her own problems. And that explosion of glitter inside her when she saw Josh, she interprets as Josh being the guy for her. And I interpret it as Josh being an addiction. Josh is a manifestation of her externalizing and distancing from actual issues so that she doesn't have to cope with them. And obviously, Greg's an alcoholic. And Greg is doing probably the most level-headed thing in this episode. But I don't know if he will actually get on that plane. It's not out of the question. He is, I feel like, a character that we have gotten to know well enough that we could follow him into another city and watch his progress there. And it wouldn't be out of the question that I'm still interested in what's going on with him outside of everything that's going on with the crew back in West Covina. I think this show is good enough to pull that off. It's a tough thing to do, but I could see it. However, because she stops him right before he gets on that plane, I don't know. I feel like what it's going to take is her promising him that she doesn't want a relationship anymore, that she is like okay with not pursuing that and making him feel comfortable with staying and not trying. But like his father's assertion, Greg's father believes that Greg wants to stay in West Covina for Rebecca. That is what he thinks is happening. It feels sort of true. It's definitely, I think, one in a couple of factors. I mean, Greg is afraid because this is a big change he's making during a time in his life where he is just trying to get his feet under him. So that's just scary. And also, I think that Greg is one of those people who they achieve what they think they want, and all of a sudden they don't know what to do. And I can be that kind of person myself, where you're like, I think I want XYZ, and I aspire to it and I work toward it. But then once I actually get XYZ, it turns out it wasn't really about that. It was about me wanting a thing to strive for, to give myself some purpose. And when I get the thing, all it feels like to me is that maybe my purpose is over. So maybe Greg, striving so much to get to Emory, once he's faced with the possibility of actually getting to go to Emory and leave home and do this, maybe it's just kind of scary to be like, wow, I achieved the thing that I wanted. I achieved it, and now I'm doing it, and now I could really fuck it up. Like, it's one thing to tell everybody in hypotheticals that you got accepted at Emory and are going to be going at some point. It's another thing to try and apply yourself and actually get the work done and see whether or not you measure up. And that's like, that'll be a fucking wake-up call for a lot of people. I mean, he already had a bit of a wake-up call when he was just trying to slide through his class in, one of the episodes from season 1. And he doesn't get the grade that he expected to get. So I don't know if he has really internalized what happened there, but I could see that happening again at Emory easily. It is a really shocking thing when you're somebody who has been able to slide through things most of your life to then be placed in a program with peers who are just as good or better than you. When you tend to be surrounded by people who are not as good as you every day, you get used to the idea that you're the best and you don't have to try that hard in order to be noticed. And when I went to Carnegie Mellon, I had been just sailing through school. I mean, everything was easy. All of my projects came out ahead of everyone else's. And there were times when I genuinely felt guilty because I knew I did not put that much effort into it, and yet I still just crushed everybody. Let me tell you, joining a class at CMU was humbling AF, because there were people in that class that just, not only were they simply better than me, but they also wanted it more than I did. And they were willing to put work in that I was not willing to put in, which really made me realize, oh God, I don't think I actually want this that bad. I'm here because I was expected to go to college, and I picked the major that I thought would be interesting and also not a competitive one to get into. And they offered to pay half my tuition for 4 years. And so here I am. But I really don't actually care, and I'm not driven like some of these people are. So low key, I'm kind of gunning for Greg to go. I want Greg to see what he is capable of when he is separated from codependent relationships and given this opportunity to just his father sells the house out from under him and gives him half the money. That should pay for not only his schooling, but also his housing. If he's selling, I'm assuming that his father was able to sell that house in California for at least $250,000. I'm thinking, right? Greg is being given an opportunity to really just focus on school without having to get a job, without having to worry about scraping by and, living poor like so many college students do. And I would love to see how that works out for him. It's just him being separated from everybody else that makes me nervous. And will he continue to try and talk to people? Will there be video chats? Will there be will he realize that maybe he doesn't actually want to stay friends with people from back home? I don't really see that happening, but Greg has kept himself so distant from so many of his friends that I could see him telling himself that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a lot going on with his story, and I really like the fact that he is managing to stay sober throughout all of this and make some smart decisions. And the scene with him and Josh, oh my God, guys. Kid who plays Josh, what's his name, Victor? Man, he was good in that scene. He seemed so genuine of just like, I fucked up so bad. I can't even believe that you are still willing to talk to me. I am so sorry. And I believed him in the depths of my soul when I was watching this scene. It really felt real to me. This was not a guy. This is not the same Josh that was at the table when Greg was announcing to everybody that he's an alcoholic, worrying about its effect on him or what it means about him as a person. And this is not the Josh who was just distracted by his video games while Rebecca's talking to him about what's going on with Greg, just worried about whether Greg hates him or not. This is a Josh who genuinely realizes that he done fucked up and that he doesn't have the right to expect friendship from this person anymore. That he is not entitled to that necessarily. And that if this friendship continues, it is because of the good graces of his friend having forgiven him. Josh is growing a little bit, I hope. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I just really wanted to talk about Greg because of the scene. So Rebecca, she's like sure that it's her destiny. If you're not going to help me, I know someone who will. And she gets up and says the universe. Now, her therapist says something about who? Dr. Geller is going to help you? He's a hack who got his degree at a hotel in Turks and Caicos, which I don't remember who Dr. Geller is. Have I met Dr. Geller? Is this a character that I'm supposed to know about, or is that just supposed to be like a thing that she's throwing out there? But yeah, Rebecca says the universe, and then she walks out of here and starts looking for signs just on the street as she is walking that she thinks point to who she should go after. This is, guys, oh my God, but she is my mom in this scene. I have grown out of this for the most part. I definitely used to be somebody who saw the world this way, but nowadays I don't have a lot of patience for it. There are times where I'll still be like, okay, that's definitely something, because there's no way that coincidence happens. But it's really rare. It has to be something that I've been bonked over the head. Guys, I have talked before about it, but I love my mom to death. I do. But she is so easily influenced by things around her. It's just vague things people say, the way they say them. She is a big believer in numerology, and she decides what numbers mean what according to like the people in her life. So, you know, there'll be a number that means like stability or something. And she thinks, okay, stability, that means my husband. Anything that comes up with 8s in it is about Jim, you know, that kind of thing. And so she'll do this thing where if she's deciding between things that she wants to do, she will be like, okay, universe, when I pull into this parking spot at the doctor, if it shows me 3 1s on my odometer, that means that I should pursue XYZ line of action. That, no joke, comes up every conversation I have with her, what her odometer said at a given time. And I don't know how to react to it. I don't know what to say, because it doesn't mean anything to me. And it's coming, like, there are things that she wants outside guidance on. She wants the universe to like tell her and give her an answer, like it's a question with a right or wrong answer. And that's not necessarily the case all the time. And it's really like frustrating to talk to somebody who not only believes in this stuff, because again, I will admit, occasionally I do believe in it. Somebody who depends on this stuff, somebody who doesn't seem capable of taking responsibility for their own decisions, and so depends entirely on outside forces to drive the choices that they make. That's not a way to live, you know? And Rebecca here, like, trying to just, she interprets this kid walking by because he's wearing his, like, karate uniform, that maybe that's pointed to Josh. There's a whiskey bottle on the ground that somebody kicks that she thinks might be Greg. There's a literal sign for signs 4, which I love. Wait, there was signs 2 and 3? This summer, the signs never stop. Guys, this is what happens. If you start to look for something, you are going to see it everywhere. And that's not to say that I didn't have a thing when I was like doing a ritual to find out what my animal was, my totem animal, that I didn't have a bunch of shit pop up with ravens within the space of literally 2 days. That to me, I was like, there is no way this is a coincidence. This is definitely in response to what I did. But it's another thing to just be like, well, this number means something. So if I see it a lot, numbers are literally everywhere. You will see that number if you're looking for it. That's it. That's all there is to it. End of story. So, Erica says she would be friends with my mom. My mom thinks I have bizarre, vivid dreams because I played with a Ouija board as a kid. It never happened. And that our deceased neighbor's spirit is in the salt lamp she bought at a garage sale. Oh my God, Erica, they really would be friends. They 100%. That is exactly something that my mom would say. Oh my God, totally. And like, I think back and I think maybe my mom is a little confused lately because I'm not on board with some of the stuff that she says. And like in high school, you know, I was like very much into it because when you're in high school, you don't know who you are and you welcome anything that sort of leads you down any path because it feels like you need some sort of structure and like identity. So getting like tarot cards and runes. I had a bag of runes as well. Doing like palm reading or astrology, all of that stuff really makes sense as a teen when you just don't have a lot of direction yet and you're not really sure where you should go with things. But there does come a point where I feel like you need to understand that the world is like, it's not all about you all the time. And I just can't with how like completely she is contextualizing everything that's happening around her as being somehow linked to her personally. You know, it's just so self-centered. So we jump from there to the scene where Greg comes home and his dad has sold the house. Turns out his dad is going to be moving into a retirement community. I don't remember what he says. I think he says like barely 60 or something like that, like a retiree community that is very active. And he's extremely excited to be hitting on some widows, as he puts it, at the swim-up bar, which honestly does sound pretty dope. I'm not mad at him for that. But Greg, understandably, is really feeling like, dude, what the fuck? Like, I'm here in the middle of recovery trying to get my life stable, and you're just completely throwing it all up in the air. And there's a part of me that understands that, but Greg is old enough now that I'm not as angry at his dad as I might otherwise be. Like, I went through something like this that I think affected me way more than I realized at the time. I finished my second year in college, which was abroad. I was offered a job in California, and my parents had just split up. And I turned the job down because I felt like I needed to be there for my dad, because he was not only going through this divorce from my mom, but he had been excommunicated from his church. So he lost a lot in a very short time. And I knew that it was kind of killing him. And I felt like I wanted to be there to be at the house to keep him company. By the time I got home, he had sold the house and moved out. My mom had moved into a studio apartment, and my dad had moved into a one-bedroom built into the back of a church that had a separate storage room in the basement that he put my bed in. It was a basement room still filled with boxes of decorations and supplies for the church that the churchgoers would have to walk through in order to get to the second storage room behind it. So basically my bedroom was a hallway. And I was 19, maybe 18, actually, I think. Because I started college young. I started school young. And when I got home and realized that there was literally no place for me to go, that I wasn't really a factor, and that I had given up this job that really would have been excellent as a fit for me, for someone who wasn't really like concerned about whether I could stay with them or not, it was really hurtful. And I wound up moving in with my aunt and uncle, which didn't go great. I was there for 2 years, maybe. And this reminded me of that a little bit until I stepped back and realized that, like, Greg is at least 10 years older than me at that time. Probably. Maybe he's supposed to be like late 20s. But yeah, even if he is late 20s though, 10 years, yeah. And he's being given half the money to settle himself down somewhere else. It's not like he's being left with no home and has to like figure shit out. And he's already been accepted at a school. And there is a lot that is sort of figured out for him already. So while I was a little tempted to be mad at his dad for doing this without even like talking to him, another part of me was like, yeah, this is his father's house and he's an adult, and he's actually, his father is being extremely generous with him about the whole thing, honestly. I am not that mad at him. I'm giving you half the money so you can go to school. And Greg has to sort of like, you know, figure out exactly how he wants to handle this. There's a scene later where he's packing things up and he comes across the photos of him and Rebecca together, and his father astutely figures out that that is probably why he is staying. And he says that Rebecca jerks people around. And I forget who said it in the last chat, because I took umbrage with this. You know, is Rebecca a disaster? Yes. But I kept thinking that he was referring to like what went down with her hooking up with Josh instead. And I'm like, not for nothing, but Greg in that evening made it very clear he didn't want anything serious. And he passed out drunk and like abandoned her, making it, I think, completely fair game that she ran off with somebody else. He seemed to want that from the way he was behaving at the time. We know better because we've gotten to see the way he really feels about her and how messed up he is. But if I were her, I wouldn't have felt bad about it. And then he, I should underline, does not know that she hooked up with somebody else, but chooses to remain completely MIA with no contact except for one text for a solid month. I don't think it's her that's jerking people around. So I got real mad at his father for the way he talked about her. But this person reminded me about Rebecca running off with some other dude from the taco festival and sleeping with him. So that's fair. It could be like, well, why would Greg tell his dad that? But Greg and his dad seem pretty close. I could definitely see Greg telling his father about that and being like, you just will not believe this shit. So, okay. But I do think that happened long enough ago, and that what just happened between the two of them and the way he completely abandoned Rebecca and literally dodged her when she came to the house trying to find him and had his father run interference, that's Greg dicking people around. So it makes sense that his dad would react this way because parents are protective of their own kids. They're willing to excuse their own kids' behavior when they're going through some shit. It makes sense that his father would be much less tolerant of her shenanigans than he is of his own son's shenanigans. So, like, I get it. But I do want to mention that I felt like he was being pretty unfair. I just, the two of them are both a mess, and they each have both done really messy, shitty things. And I don't feel like it's anybody's one fault here. However, when he did say you are poison for each other, I can't help but feel that. I'm not sure it's exactly true. It feels a little strong, but it doesn't feel like they're good for one another. If Rebecca had if it felt like she was opening her mind to actually working on her mental health stuff, the way that Greg is trying to actually work on his drinking issue, then I might be like, the both of you can work on yourselves while getting into a casual relationship together. Like, you can slowly start off again, seeing one another. But she's not willing to do that. It's just him doing a bunch of internal work, and she's doing none. So I do think the two of them getting back together is not a good plan for either one of them. Samantha's saying, and he also treated Heather pretty badly. Yeah, true, right? Like, and does his dad know about that? That he, basically fucked up and ran from Heather as soon as she acted sincerely interested, came back, apologized, tried to make it right, and then the moment that she told him to go after Rebecca, he literally, flew across the state. Is his dad aware that this is the way he treated somebody? Because jerking somebody around does not even begin to cover it. And they're still working together and seeing each other every day. Fuck, So, and I also enjoy the fact that his dad is talking about how he was thinking about what he wanted to do regarding the house, and somebody came and knocked on the door, and it was like a sign. So everybody in this episode is talking about signs and who they can, how they can make sense of what they're going through. So then we go to the scene with Rebecca and Paula having lunch at the office. And she has had a egg sandwich out of the vending machine, apparently, and vomits, but does not think it's the fault of the sandwich. She believes that this is a sign that she's pregnant. And rather than panic, which would be the appropriate response, and I have to be honest, I kind of wondered if it were actually Josh's baby, if she was pregnant. It is, she takes this to be a sign from the universe that she is supposed to be with Josh. And this is all predicated, I need to repeat, on the assumption she's making that this is Josh's baby, which there is no reason to think that necessarily. Frequently, by the time you start vomiting and feeling like symptoms, you are a couple of months into a pregnancy. So it could be Greg's. It's been, what, a month and a half since they split up, and they were fucking all the time. I think she wanted it to be Josh's baby, which points to the fact that she wants to be with Josh more than Greg. This is like one of those things where you're trying to decide which dress to wear, and somebody hides both dresses behind their back and is like, all right, you're going to wear whichever one I pull out, and you pull one out and you can see a flicker of disappointment, and you're like, see, you wanted it to be the other dress, so you know which dress you should wear. That's kind of what's happening here to me, is that she is just leaping to the conclusion of whose baby it is, because that's who she genuinely wants to be with more, and she is trying to assign that like a more official meaning. She is trying to pretend like that this is a sign from the universe because clearly XYZ, and it's like, no, not clearly XYZ at all. You have just decided that because that's what you want, obviously. So she is having a real moment of excitement and feeling like she has got this figured out. And meanwhile, Paula has her own bit of panic as she realizes that she also has not gotten her period yet. And guys, let me tell you what. Rebecca being pregnant is bad enough, but just poor Paula. Oh God. Guys, I can't handle it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. I'm just so worried about it. So Rebecca goes home. She takes this pregnancy test. Or no, she doesn't take a pregnancy test. That's right. She goes straight to buying prenatal vitamins. That's what it is that he saw. Pro tip, every woman that I have ever spoken to who has taken prenatal vitamins has talked about how amazing their hair and their nails looked. And so I am currently taking prenatal vitamins. I have no desire to have a child. I just want some nice nails, guys. I got bendy, flaky nails. It's terrible. So help me out, Vites. So Josh comes home and she is like talking about how she has never felt so close to him and like jumps on him, starts making out with him. He like throws a bunch of stuff off of the table and is like about to have sex with her on the kitchen table. And he notices this bottle of vitamins and she tells him that she's pregnant, that it's his, that this is a sign, can't you see? Not really seeming to even consider that he will not be excited to hear about this. The only consideration that she gives to that possibility is like this acknowledgement that, yeah, I guess I get that this is huge. This is a really big deal. It's not just huge and a big deal. This is life-shattering information that you're delivering as if it's great news, and you need to know that it's not necessarily. And she is simply in this cloud of denial and delusion and is not even thinking that. And Josh's face throughout this scene, it is like he has been frozen. It's one of those moments where I feel like maybe if I was watching this when I was younger, I would think that this was really an overdone sort of reaction of him being like frozen in this face of shock. But having gone through more shit in my life, I now know that that is a thing that happens. Your face does something. And as it does that, your brain takes off and just goes in like 30 different directions. And your face does not react to those thoughts or show that you have like moved on in your thinking. So you continue on with this like expression, apparently because you can't move or think. But in fact, it's because you are thinking so much that your body just can't keep up. So this for me felt extremely true. And his reaction to her being pregnant is pretty much what I think my reaction would be these days if I found out I was pregnant. I would just sit and stare for a minute. And I mean, like, Rebecca is not just telling him that she is pregnant. She is going through baby names. She is talking about, like, I mean, it is a lot. She tells him she has to pee, so she runs up to the bathroom, and we see him just continuing to sit there looking like he does not know what to do or how to react. And as he was up there in the live watch, I said, it's going to turn out she's not even pregnant, huh? Like, I didn't even mean she's going to like get her period in the bathroom right now. I just meant like overall, it's going to turn out that she's freaking him out and it's not true. And my guess came true much more quickly than I expected, because she goes up, pees, and then she comes back downstairs. Okay, change of plans. I just got my period, so I am not pregnant. Wow, this has been quite a day. Sorry to stress you out. But now, good news, we can have some period sex. And so we start what it seems like is going to be another song about period sex. And it's kind of a great moment where she's starting this thing and he cuts her off. I didn't expect this. I don't know if we've seen this on this show where there's like apparently a musical number beginning that isn't allowed to continue. But yeah, he says, stop it. What just happened? I walked in the door. Everything was fine. But then you were pregnant. My life started flashing before my eyes. Then you weren't. I need some air. And he's starting to leave. And she's like, what are you doing? Josh, wait. And he says, no. You know what? I need more than air. I can't do this. And the last 3 minutes have been the most upsetting of my life. And she thinks that she's like, I thought you would have been happy about it. And he says, this confirms what I've been feeling. I've been so unsure about us. What just happened? That's a sign that we need to stop doing this. This is all wrong. And then he starts to talk about how it had been casual, but he starts leaving his stuff here and everything has turned out to be too much. And he has got to go. And he's getting all of his shit together. And she tries to say, this is just a fight, right? You're coming back. All couples fight. And he says, we are not a couple. I'm sorry. And starts to leave. And she has to have him actually say the words. It's so clear what's happening here, Rebecca. But she says, sorry for what? And he turns around and says, I don't want to see you anymore. And it's like she's been punched in the face. And she has this moment as he like closes the door behind him where she does that like scream cry where you like do that like and you're trying to talk, but you're also trying to cry and your voice just squeaks out into this like little screech. It was a very genuine moment to me. And honestly, thank fuck. Am I right, everybody? Am I right? Like, am I the only one who was just like, oh my God, I am so glad that one of these dudes removed themselves from the equation. Not because I want her decision to be easier. I stand by. She should not be with anyone. But her and Josh are obviously so bad for each other. Josh is obviously only into it for the sex. He obviously doesn't really care about her the way that she wants to be cared about. He is obviously not committed to this the way she wants him to be. Everything is 100% obvious. And it has just taken what feels like ages for him to realize it. It's funny because it's only episode 3. But it's so painful to watch that it feels like it's been like 6 or 7 episodes of this. And I am just so relieved. And I hope to God that this doesn't like somehow get rekindled. That the two of them don't start pulling her or pulling back together somehow. Now, I don't know what that looks like for Josh because I don't imagine that despite things not working out with him and Rebecca, I don't feel like he's going to get back together with Valencia either. I hope that he just figures out something else and moves in with his mom temporarily. But it's extremely interesting to me that we're reaching a point where he is pulling away from Rebecca in his way. Greg is pulling away from Rebecca in his way. So what does that mean for the show? You know, if they actually stick to that, what does that look like? What do we see? I don't know how that works. So we cut to the next day and she's coming into work. No makeup on. Her circles under her eyes. Obviously really, really tired. She sits down and Paula doesn't look at her right away and is talking about giving her the pregnancy test and then looks up and realizes that something is very wrong and finds out that Josh broke up with her. And Paula, like, is such a good friend because she is just so supportive and everything. But she does say, maybe this is for the best. The bouncing back and forth, you are exhausted. I love that she corrects herself. She almost just says it's exhausting, which sounds much more judgmental, but then corrects it to you are exhausted, which Rebecca can't really argue with. I mean, look at her in the scene, you know? And she says, why don't you take a break and focus on yourself? I think that would be healthy. So Rebecca's like, I don't even know why I came to work today. She decides that she's going to go and take a walk. And Paula, for her part, sort of stops and thinks because Rebecca's like, don't take a walk with me. I need to be alone. Plus, I think both of us being on our period, XYZ. And Paula realizes that she still hasn't gotten it yet and turns around and looks at this pregnancy test and then goes home and talks to her husband. And it's an awful moment because she doesn't want to take the test yet. Erica says they're so good at making Rachel Bloom look just awful when they need to, like in the episode when she saw Josh, Greg, and Hector and Joe at the grocery store. Yeah, they do not hold back with like the pale, uneven skin, you know. This reminds me of those of you who saw the Sex and the City movie, which is not good, but that's a whole other thing. Sarah Jessica Parker, there's a scene where they just let her look like she looks. And maybe uglied her up some, but it really just seems to be, we didn't put any makeup on her and we used bad lighting. And it's after she gets left at the altar, basically, and she closes the mirror in her bathroom and is looking at herself, and the entire audience in the theater went, oh God, because she just looks fucking haggard. And they just let her. They were like, yeah, she has been put through emotional hell, is deeply depressed, and cannot crawl out of it. This is what that looks like. And I appreciate that. So the scene with Paula and her husband, what's so frustrating is that she is just talking about how this is the way the universe works for her. She never thinks that she's going to be able to get what she wants because there's always going to be some obstacle thrown at her that it's like just unfair. And her husband is like, you are getting ahead of yourself. Take the test and make sure that this is actually true before you just, you know, wax philosophical and self-pitying. And she doesn't want to take it yet. She's not ready to. But I am just so not like that. I want to know for sure and then plan of action. That's just how I am. Even when it's something that's really upsetting and might cause a panic, that is how I cope with things. So the idea of just putting the test away in your purse and going back to work does not compute for me at all. I could not understand her thinking on this. I really couldn't. Just like, you can't, you like, she just in that scene seemed to want to believe the worst. And granted, we find out later that the worst is true and she is pregnant. But in that scene, if you don't actually know, talking like the universe is against you just feels self-indulgent. It just doesn't, it's not based on anything. It's just you feeling this way, you know? So, you know, whatever. So Rebecca goes to the park and she stumbles across Greg and she's just like, hey guy, what's going on? And he has just had his talk with Guardrail, in which Guardrail makes it clear that he is not going to tell Greg what to do. Greg needs to be a grown-up and figure this shit out. And he says that there's a lot of hours to fill because he's not drinking, and also he's saving money, so he was able to buy these shoes, which is, man, that is the thing that I have heard. I am lucky because my addiction to food is actually, like, less expensive than eating healthy. So for me, once I start to eat better and take better care of myself, I am spending more money. But when you are an alcoholic or you smoke, you know, something like that, and you quit, I have heard that people are just like, wow, I had no idea how much money I was really spending on this. It's insane. And they have a moment where they talk about shipping Daryl and Joe together, which is just so exactly true. I love them. And he says something about how it's weird that we both ended up here at the same time. What are the chances of that happening? So again, he is still looking for a sign, and she is trying to reject that. Says that she used to think that and now she doesn't. And he's like, what, when you were a kid? And he's like, no, like an hour ago. It's a cute, like the two of them are good together in terms of the way that they talk. So she starts to walk away because she seems to realize this is a bad scene. That the two of them are in vulnerable places and that she can't just like keep on falling back on signs. But then he grabs her and kisses her, which I have to be honest, I really did not expect. And I'm not really mad about it. Part of me is like, oh, come on, dude. But he's also really vulnerable right now and not sure what he wants to do. And there's been a lot going on and changes in his life. And clinging to Rebecca makes a lot of sense. It really does. Like, I can't throw stones here, you know? So we see her at her therapist talking about how I stopped looking for signs, but then I got the biggest sign of all. And I love her fucking therapist just being like, Jesus Christ. So she says to him, what do you think about trying this over again? Doing it really slowly, making sure that we don't rush into anything. And if you feel like it's a good idea, meet me here at sunset. And we'll go to that little mom and pop Italian place, to which he replies, Olive Garden, which I just love so much. Guys, I love when this show acknowledges that there is very little around them that is not big box, because that's the reality that most of us live in. Am I right? Most of us don't have like little lovely like boutique places to eat that are it's just, that's not how it goes usually. But yeah, it makes sense why she starts to think that this is the way this is supposed to go. It feels like a sign. I get this one. And the way he is behaving makes it seem like this is also what he wants. You know, it makes sense, this one. And, you know, she tells him that we can move forward and just start with a clean slate and forget all the bad stuff. Just think about it. And she grabs him and kisses him again and walks away. And then we get the bit of her talking to her therapist. It's the other guy. It's the guy who was under my nose all along that I underappreciated. Basically, she tells us the trope. And is like, it should have been so obvious, because life, we know, functions according to tropes in romantic comedies and teen movies. And he was the other guy, and I should have realized right away that he was the one, because that's always what happens in movies. I mean, the thing is, so many of us, I'm sure, thought that was true based on the fact that this is a TV show and that was the setup. And I am loving that they let us sort of like think that, but then backed away from it, because I didn't like that from the beginning. You know, I am already over a lot of those tropes as an adult woman. And I saw the way they were sort of setting Greg up to be that guy. And I just wasn't really here for it. I just wasn't that interested. I like Greg as a person. He's a disaster. He's a dickhead, but I still like him. But I do not want the two of them together, really. I just, you know? So I was like, are they doing this? And do they want me to like Greg for her more? Because I don't really feel like that's a good thing for anybody. And I love that they just took this moment with her talking to her therapist to straight up address that that is a thing that they were doing. So Greg like goes to meet her at the bridge at sunset. But then he sees a sign standing next to her that says danger. And, you know, because of you are not supposed to swim here. And he takes that as a bigger sign. And the next thing we know, he's at the fucking airport. Which, I mean, not a bad call entirely. And apparently he Snapchats her that he's going, which is weird to me. I don't know why he didn't, like, maybe he didn't Snapchat her directly. She got an alert, so I thought he had sent it to her directly. But to be honest, I don't know how Snapchat works. He might have just Snapchatted in general that he was at the airport and she realized. So she pursues him as he says goodbye to all of his friends. I thought, because we have Paula finding out that she's pregnant, and she's at the office, and it turns out Daryl has pulled a bunch of strings because he knows the dean and got her into the school. Which, guys, Daryl is the purest, sweetest cinnamon roll, and I feel so bad that every time he tries to do something to help, it turns out this way, because it is not his fault. Paula bursts into tears. He has arranged this whole, like, congratulations party at the office. And she leaves. And I was hoping that Paula had gotten in touch with her and that she was going to see Paula because she found out that Paula was pregnant. But upon reflection, I'm sure Paula doesn't fucking use Snapchat. Or if she does, she wouldn't fucking announce that she's pregnant on Snapchat. She hasn't decided what she's going to do. But at the time, I was kind of like, are they like kind of undermining my expectation here? Are they tricking me into thinking she's going to see Greg when she's really going to see Paula? I am dying to know what Rebecca's going to say when she finds out about Paula. Like, ugh. So that's the episode, guys. This was a really good one. I can understand why you guys wanted to watch me watch this one. Y'all, I am just so like, I really don't know what's going to happen next. It could go in a lot of different directions, which I find kind of compelling. So the next episode is going to be on the 21st. So everybody stay tuned for that. The 21st at 12:30 Central Time. So it'll be a couple weeks, but I'm very excited. Thank you all again so much for listening and being here in the chat, helping me out. And I will see you all again in a couple weeks with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.